Hello, Dr. Rachel. This is Michael Fleming, and I'm sending you this video because for the last 13 years, I haven't been able to have sex. Been suffering ED. I'm a type 2 of diabetic. Ended up having that for the last 5 years. So I'm in the gym, doing the things I'm supposed to do, but still there's no improvements whatsoever. So any suggestions you may have, I went and got a penis pump, getting ready to buy the Phoenix. If there's anything that you can suggest that I need to do that you know is going to work.
Okay, so now one of the reasons why this is, and thank you so much for this question. And one of the main reasons why I want to share this question with you is because there's so many people out here, so many of you with a very similar story. And it may not be because of diabetes, it may be some other chronic issue that has, put you in a situation where you're just feeling like, geez, is anything going to work? You've tried this, you've tried this, you've tried this, you've tried this. Now, the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, how is my level of inflammation, and how does that represent blood flow, right? So for in this particular instance, in diabetic instances, we know that diabetes, having elevated levels of sugar, not just destroys the nerves, but also can destroy blood vessels. So even when you start to get your sugar under control, which is the first step, now you've got to try to repair some of the damage that's been done. Now, I've got some great news. It can be done. I've seen it done. It happens all the time. But one of the first things that you have to do when you recognize that nothing has worked, he goes on to say that Viagra doesn't work, the Trimix doesn't work, nothing has worked. When you get to the point where nothing is working, that is a nitric oxide issue. It definitely is, because you can't make an erection without nitric oxide. Viagra, you can take the maximum dose, but if you don't have enough nitric oxide on board, it will never work. So first of all, we've got to look at how can we boost nitric oxide production, right? Now, we talked about the two different pathways. We talked about the L-arginine and L-citrulline. Well, since he's over the age of 50, I am not going to push an L-arginine or L-citrulline pathway there. Now, we might add a little citrinox on there, just depending on how healthy someone is. But in the most cases, if you're coming in with diabetes and things have gone that route, I'm just going to go with trying to boost nitrate levels naturally. And one of the products that I use to do that is actually Berkeley Life, Berkeley Life Professional. Let me put this. Now, I am going to send him a personal email with some personal recommendations, because I'm so excited that he even, was brave enough to ask this, because this is something that everybody is suffering with. So this is where you get some of my practitioner supply of Berkeley Life, drrachelinstitute.com/NO. NO stands for nitric oxide. So that's the first thing. How can we boost nitric oxide levels? And really, honestly, what makes Berkeley Life a little different than some of the others, like, I've talked about NeoPro 40 or Human Ends product. The main difference for me is that theirs is a nitrite and this one is a nitrate. So with that being the case, if 2 capsules are kind of the equivalent to taking 2 to 400 milligrams of nitrates in. And that's ultimately what we're doing with the smoothie recipes. So I'm telling you, if you combine smoothie recipes and this concentrated nitrates, it makes a huge difference, because not only are we trying to restore erectile function, we are trying to boost just about everything that we can with this gentleman. Now, another thing that we want to think about too, okay, so we got to think about nitric oxide levels. The next thing I want you to think about is your prostate. How is your prostate doing? Are you getting up a few times at night to urinate here and there? Is your stream a little slower when you go to pee? Do you have to push it out? Are you going to the bathroom and just little's coming out at a time and then you have to go back more frequently? Do you have a decreased level of ejaculate? Ejaculate you used to finish and it would shoot out. Now it's just kind of, all of those are signs that there's some prostate issues there. Now, most of you will go to the doctor, they'll check your prostate and tell you the prostate is fine and, not to worry about anything. But the prostate is let's think of it like a rubber band, and it's a rubber band that sits at the base of the erection, but all of the nerves that go to the penile tissue to give an erection have to pass through the sides of the prostate and below the prostate, right? So if that prostate is enlarged or boggy or deconditioned, or you have prostatitis or what have you, that will interfere with erection. So I want you to make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can for prostate health. So you're doing your dick ups, because one thing I never talk about much is that when you're doing the dick up or the Kegel or whatever you want to call it, you're actually kind of squeezing the pelvic floor, and it's kind of squeezing the prostate a little bit. So it is almost like your version of a prostate massage without actually massaging it. So you are actually stimulating the prostate a little bit when you're actually doing that. You're making your bladder stronger, you're making your pelvic floor stronger, you're making your erection stronger, and you're actually reconditioning your prostate when you do those. Another thing, go back and watch the videos on prostate health. What can you integrate into your diet to improve prostate health? So you got to look at your prostate anytime you have any erectile issues. Make sure that you're getting it checked out. So that's another thing. So we talked about blood flow. Also, to improve blood flow, we got to move around more, right? If you have a desk job, I want you to set your alarm so that every 30 or 45 minutes, it reminds you to get up and walk around. Do some squats, walk around, do something, go get some coffee, just anything to kind of get moving and get your body circulating more. The other thing that I want you to think about are your hormones. Have you gotten your hormones checked? Do you happen to know what your testosterone, your free testosterone levels are? Is your doctor telling you they're normal, but then you listen to me and I'm telling you, I really want them above 800, and if so, if they are low, let's find a doctor in your town that knows how to manage testosterone and won't mind getting you on some if you need some. The other thing to think about when we're talking about testosterone is how can we naturally optimize testosterone? So I have great videos on that. Go back and look at the videos on how to naturally boost testosterone, because they work. The quickest thing that I can do to change somebody's testosterone actually is to help with their sleep patterns and to reduce some of the blue light exposure from their screens, from their television screens, from their computer screens, from their phones. Put those away, get them in a great sleep cycle, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes we see testosterone levels boosting 60 to 100 points off of that, right? So we got to think about hormones. Another thing we got to think about is, what am I doing on a daily basis that can destroy my hormones, right? Are you particularly, do you microwave plastic containers? Are you taking your leftovers, putting them in plastic containers, and then putting them in a microwave? Listen, that is plastic, that is toxic, that BPA, they'll say BPA free. It may not be BPA, but it'll be BPR, BPT, BPS, whatever. Some chemical that made that plastic is being released every time you go from cold to hot, cold to hot. Switch to glass products. What I want you to do is detoxify your life. Look at your deodorant, look at your soap, make sure there's no parabens in it, make sure that it's checking out and that you've done your research on everything that you're putting on your body. Because remember, some guys I have on testosterone cream, all they're doing is rubbing it on their body. These testosterone cream manufacturers and gel manufacturers have been in trouble lately, because what's happening? The guy's putting it on, then he's putting it in the laundry, putting his clothes in the laundry. He's washing those clothes with his wife and his kids and everything else. Now some of that testosterone is on their clothes. And guess what? That testosterone gets off onto their clothes, into their body. That is how porous our skin is, right? So you have to be extremely mindful about what you're putting on your body. So you've got to look at those labels and make sure that nothing you're putting on your body is interfering with your hormones. A great place to start for that is ewg.org. Let me put that up, because what ewg.org can do is give you an opportunity to check out everything that's coming into your house so that you can decide whether or not it's safe enough to be there. Listen, we can no longer rely on the marketing labels, things people tell us. You got to do your own research. It'll say healthy on it. It'll, make you think health food and all of that, and it won't be. Next thing I want you to do is go through your house. If you're Black, I know you or your mama has some plugins in the socket, right? I go to my mom's house, and every time I get there, I am pulling plugins out of the wall. The problem with those smell goods, as people want to call them, is that they are hormone disruptors. They will interfere with your hormones. They will interfere with your mama's hormone. They will interfere with the whole family's hormones. So what I want you to start doing is looking for endocrine disruptors throughout your whole life that could be not just destroying your sex life, but destroying your health as well, right? So that's another thing. We got to look at hormones. And then the next thing, you have already done the piece of getting a pump. But what I didn't hear you say is that you're using it. I'm going to be very clear. If you haven't had sex in years, or you're not having sex on a regular basis, and you're not creating erections for yourself, that tissue has gone to sleep, and you have got to wake it up. And one of the best there are published articles after articles and after articles on the benefit of vacuum erection devices. And a vacuum erection device is a fancy clinical word for a pump. And what the pump actually does is it actually creates a little bit of chaos in the blood vessels, in the tissue. It's like, oh, wait, a little bit of a micro tear here. So now my body is going to repair it like it's new tissue. It's going to grow some new blood vessels there. It all hands on deck to try to repair this area. So without the pump in this process, for someone whose erection has been asleep for years and years and years, you've got to do the pumping. You've got to talk to your doctor as to whether or not this is right for you first, of course. And then if he says, okay, you want to pump and train it 4 to 5 times a week, you're going to pump, leave it in for a few minutes, then release, and then you're going to massage. You're going to massage. I like to recommend a little bit of black cumin oil for the massage piece of it. I like for people to actually take the black cumin oil too and massage the testicles, because what are we doing? Remember, the skin is not just wrapping paper. The skin is our first layer of defense, and whatever you put on your skin is absorbed right into the bloodstream. So you got to be very mindful about what it is that you're putting on that skin, and making sure that it's in purposeful and that it's done with intention, right? So the pumping is the next piece. Now, if you also notice, he says that he's bought or thinking about buying the Phoenix. Now, I tell guys all the time, make sure you've been doing the things I'm talking about for months before you get the Phoenix. The Phoenix is designed for people who have mild to moderate, not moderate to severe erectile dysfunction. If you are in where he is, he needs to probably get shockwave treatment in the office. Shockwave treatment might even need what's called a P shot, or plasma-rich protein, or PRP injections into the tissue of the erection so that it can actually start to regenerate itself. This might even be a great candidate for Botox or botulism, or Botox, botulism toxin, injected into the corpus cavernosum, or the tissue of the erection. So we're in this day and age where a lot can be done, but I also want to caution you that you have to put the work in. It's not going to happen overnight. So I always, what are my magnesium levels? Does he need to be on magnesium? Do you need to be on vitamin D3? Do you need to be on omega-3 fatty acids? But I always know when everything else has stopped working, I always know you need to be on a nitric oxide booster. And I actually only have about 50 of these that I can, distribute. But if you go to drrachelinstitute.com/NO for nitric oxide, you can order the Berkeley Life Professional, and it's actually at a discount because Berkeley Life, they have a store that they actually, sell it for much more than that. So I want you to understand that nitric oxide is the fountain of youth. It's the fountain of youth for the D, It's the fountain of youth when we're talking about blood vessels to the kidney, when we're talking about repairing and being able to process your blood sugar, when we're talking about brain health. We need blood flow to every part of our body. And what happens over time that makes it so that we're not as healthy as we once were, why our blood pressure shoots up high, is because our bodies have decreased in our ability to create nitric oxide, because the nitric oxide synthase, or you'll see it in papers and all over the internet as NOS or NOS, that really starts to fail us over time. Okay. So, this is the Berkeley Life. This is what I use now. This is the main thing that I'm using in terms of boosting nitric oxide production through that nitrate pathway. And then, combining it with smoothie recipes just really makes things pop off, because what we need is, like even when you think about things like the DASH diet, it's a diet that came out years ago to help with people who have had cardiovascular disease or heart attacks. It's based, the diet to repair the heart is based off of having like 1,200 milligrams of nitrate rich food throughout the day. So if we're pouring into your body nitrates, particularly if maybe you don't want to make smoothies or you can't eat that many vegetables, then taking a supplement that is nitrate based is kind of where you need to go with it. Now, you may ask, what's the difference between this one and Human Ends Neopro 40, which I've also talked about. It's the one that uses the lozenge for you to chew it and suck on it, and using that to create more nitric oxide. The difference is that is a nitrite, and this Berkeley Life product is actually a nitrate. So two different things and two different ways of being absorbed. But one thing that I also didn't like and wasn't crazy about with the Neopro 40 is the fact that it uses xylitol and mannitol, which are artificial sugars. So I've always been on the cusp with it, but it does work in some guys. And so I have used it extensively, but I have some guys who just refuse to take it. And so with the Berkeley Life, it is a clean product. And so my health nuts, the guys who were like, Dr. Ross, I can't take any xylitol, I can't take any mannitol, they actually can take this one too. So that is a big deal.